Stop right now. Ask yourself a simple question. What is the oldest computer in the world? Because in the heart of ancient Greece, a civilization known for philosophy, democracy, and geometry created a machine that was so sophisticated, so mechanically advanced, that it should not have existed for another 16 centuries. This is the story of the Antikythera mechanism, a relic so shocking. One lead researcher called it more valuable than the Mona Lisa, and its existence forces us to confront a chilling historical reality. The ancient Greeks created the future and then inexplicably decided to forget it. The year is 1900. The place, the Aegean Sea, just off the remote Greek island of Antikythera. This region is a cemetery of lost history, but the men diving here were not historians. They were sponge divers, battling the cold, the darkness, and the constant threat of the bends in search of commercial treasure. On this particular day, they discovered what turned out to be the largest and richest ancient shipwreck ever found. A massive Greek trading vessel dated to around 70 to 60 BCE, sailing from the Aegean and likely bound for Rome. The sheer volume of cargo was staggering and unprecedented. The divers hauled up a king's ransom of antiquity. There were dozens of colossal bronze and marble statues, exquisite glassware, hundreds of ceramic jars, gold jewelry, and thousands of bronze and silver coins. Among the most famous pieces was a 7-foot-tall bronze colossus statue of Heracles. The recovery effort lasted until 1902, with the artifacts deposited in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. But amongst the priceless sculptures and glittering coins, the divers recovered something else, a lump, a single fist-sized mass of severely corroded, calcified bronze. They dragged it from the depths, and in the dazzling sunlight of the Greek summer, it looked like nothing more than a useless piece of rock, a fragment of decay, an ancient artifact of immense technological importance, lying unnoticed on the deck, masquerading as junk. For decades, the story of the lost ship was simply a tale of artistic and historical wealth. But the wreck also holds a profound human story. The disaster was sudden and cruel, trapping crew members and wealthy passengers on board. In the 1970s, famed explorer Jacques Cousteau visited the site and recovered hundreds more artifacts, including the skeletal remains of some of the people who died. More recently, in 2016, an international research team discovered another nearly complete human skeleton, thought to be a young man they call Pamphilos. This is more than just archaeology. It is an intimate connection to the 1st century BCE. The hope is that through DNA and isotopic analysis, scientists can learn where this man came from, Asia Minor, the Greek mainland, or even Italy, casting a fresh light on the ill-fated voyage. The man's life ended in tragedy in the depths, but his remains, along with the other artifacts, including the mechanism itself, ensure that his journey continues to speak to us 2,100 years later. The lump of corroded bronze remained exactly that, an unidentified mass. Then, in May 1902, the moment came. A politician and amateur archaeologist named Spiridon Stays was examining the collection of bronze fragments recovered from the wreck. As he handled the peculiar lump, he noticed a tiny, impossible detail. Embedded in the crust of the corrosion was what looked unmistakably like a gear wheel. Not a simple lever, not a blunt wedge, a gear wheel, finely cut, precisely engineered, and part of a system of interlocking clockwork. In the early 20th century, finding a piece of precision gearwork in a context dated to the 1st century BCE, was completely outside the known boundaries of history. This wasn't primitive engineering. This was clockwork. The discovery suggested that everything historians thought they knew about ancient technology was fundamentally wrong. The object was placed in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, where it became known as the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism was housed in a wooden framed case, roughly the size of a shoebox, and was constructed entirely out of bronze sheet. While the wooden case has long decayed, modern radiographic images have confirmed that the fragments contain at least 39 gears, 37 gears, and 2 crown gears, 27 of which have been positively identified in the largest fragments. To put that number into context, the most complex geared mechanisms known from antiquity prior to this discovery were basic mechanical devices like the Roman odometer, which used a complicated set of gears to measure distance. But those were simple machines built for practical, terrestrial uses. The Antikythera mechanism was built to map the heavens. Its purpose was purely scientific, designed to calculate and display astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. When a date was entered by the user via a crank now lost, the mechanism would give a simulation of the relative positions of the Sun, the Moon, and the 5 planets known to the ancient Greeks at that time. It operated on a geocentric model, the belief that the Earth was the center of the universe, but its mathematical and mechanical precision was nonetheless breathtaking. The front face of the device featured 2 concentric scales. The outer scale tracked the days of the 365-day Egyptian calendar, which the Greeks utilized. The inner scale represented the zodiac, showing where the celestial bodies were located in relation to the familiar constellations. But the front face also confirms the mechanism's practical importance on Earth. A smaller dial was dedicated to tracking the 4-year cycle of major athletic events, including the ancient Olympic Games. This confirmed that the device was not merely a philosophical toy, but a calendar used to plan important cultural, religious, and agricultural activities. The true genius and the deepest complexity was found on the back of the device. Here, 2 spiral dials were designed to track the vast, cyclical nature of time in the cosmos. The upper back dial was a spiral with 47 divisions per turn. This tracked the 235 synodic months, the time between one new moon and the next of the 19-year Metonic cycle. This cycle was crucial for Hellenistic calendars, as it allowed the lunar and solar calendars to be reconciled. The lower back dial was dedicated to predicting the true spectacles of the cosmos eclipses. This dial tracked the Saros cycle, a period of approximately 18 years that ancient astronomers knew was necessary to predict when solar and lunar eclipses would occur again. This was not a prediction based on superstition, but on the precise mathematical understanding of Babylonian arithmetic progression cycles. The mechanism could even predict the specific characteristics of an eclipse, such as the direction of obscuration, its magnitude, and the angular diameter of the moon, making it an astonishing achievement for its era. The complexity of the dials required more than just accurate ratios. It required advanced mechanical subtraction. To accurately model these astronomical cycles, the mechanism needed to perform a staggering feat of engineering. It had to combine and subtract the rotations of different gears to achieve specific ratios, a process that required a unique component known as the differential gear. A differential gear is a system that takes an input from 2 separate sources and produces an output that is proportional to the difference between those inputs. In the Antikythera mechanism, this gear system was used to determine the angle between the Sun and the Moon, and thus the current phase of the Moon. More critically, the differential gear system was employed to calculate the exoligmo cycle, the secondary lower dial on the rear of the mechanism. The Saros cycle is only accurate to about a third of a day. The exoligmo cycle, which is a 54-year triple Saros cycle, returns the counting to an integral number of days, creating maximum accuracy. This was achieved by mathematically subtracting the 19 revolutions of one gear from the 235 revolutions of another. The discovery that the ancient Greeks knew how to build and implement a differential gear was a profound shock. Prior to the study of the Antikythera mechanism, the earliest known use of a differential gear dated from a clock built in the year 1575, a gap of more than 16 centuries. This single perfectly engineered component proved that the ancient world's knowledge of mechanics was vastly more advanced than previously believed. Professor Michael Edmonds of Cardiff University, who led a central study of the mechanism, summarized the discovery. This device is just extraordinary, the only thing of its kind. The way the mechanics are designed just makes your jaw drop. Despite the visual and mechanical evidence, the true function and significance of the mechanism remained obscure for decades. It was an object of impossible complexity, a puzzle too complicated for the rudimentary research techniques of the early 20th century. The first major breakthrough came in 1958 with the work of historian of science Derek de Solla Price. Price, a man with the dedication of a detective, convinced the American Philosophical Society to fund his trip to Athens with a modest grant. Just $460, enough for his flight from Copenhagen and living expenses for less than 2 weeks. Armed with curiosity and mathematics, Price was the first to realize that the corroded lump was, in fact, an astronomical computing machine. His painstaking studies of the remaining gear teeth allowed him to theorize the complex 235-revolution metonic cycle, and crucially, deduce the existence of the impossible differential gear. Price's findings, published in 1959, irrevocably challenged modern perceptions of the sophistication of ancient Greek engineering. In the 2000s, an international research project utilized cutting-edge tools, including radiographic imaging, 3D scanning, and laser imaging, to peer inside the calcified fragments. The detailed scans confirmed Price's theories and revealed the inscriptions on the device's doors and faces, all written in Greek, providing specific instructions and detailed astronomical information. Dr. Tony Freeth, a central figure in this project, reinforced the shock, calling it one of the true wonders of the ancient world. With the function confirmed, the attention shifted to the impossible question: who built it? The evidence is circumstantial, but historians have narrowed the suspects down to 3 giants of Hellenistic science, men whose genius was celebrated, but whose mechanical creations were believed to have been lost to time. First is Archimedes of Syracuse, 287 to 212 BC. A towering figure in mathematics and engineering, historical accounts mention his creation of mechanical sphaerae or planetaria, which could model the motion of celestial bodies. The Roman statesman Cicero famously described seeing a demonstration of Archimedes' bronze sphere, claiming it was so advanced that it perfectly synchronized the motions of the sun, moon, and 5 planets. This detailed description, even if fictionalized for Cicero's philosophical agenda, confirms that the concept of the mechanism existed at the time of Archimedes' school. The second key suspect is Hipparchus of Rhodes, active 140 to 120 BC. Rhodes was a major center for astronomical and mechanical study during the Hellenistic period, rivaling Alexandria. The mechanism's construction date around 150 to 100 BC, and its use of advanced lunar theory aligned perfectly with the career of Hipparchus. Furthermore, the analysis of the calendar cycles within the mechanism suggests it was optimized for observations made at a latitude near Rhodes. Finally, there is Posidonius of Rhodes, 135 to 51 BC. Cicero also specifically recalled seeing a sophisticated planetarium, or sphera, recently made by Posidonius. The wreck itself contained vases in the Rhodian style, leading to the strong hypothesis that the mechanism was built at an academy, perhaps founded by the Stoic philosopher Posidonius, on the island before being shipped west toward Rome. Posidonius was known for modifying and teaching the astronomical theories of his predecessors, making him a prime candidate for the mechanism's final assembler. Regardless of the individual creator, the Antikythera mechanism confirms that the ancient Greeks possessed a profound and sophisticated understanding of both mechanics and astronomy. And this brings us back to the central mystery, the vanishing act. The Antikythera mechanism was not a one-off miracle, but rather an example of the peak of Hellenistic science. Its complexity should have been the first step toward the industrial age. Yet, after the shipwreck in the 1st century BCE, this technology effectively disappeared from the historical record. For over 1,000 years, the knowledge of how to build a differential gear system, how to construct a precision clock, or how to create a mechanism with at least 39 precisely cut gears was simply gone. Technological artifacts of similar complexity would not reappear in Europe until the great medieval cathedral clocks were constructed in the 14th century. Why did this genius vanish? Why was this technological leap abandoned? This is perhaps the most profound, even chilling, lesson the Antikythera mechanism offers. This technology was lost not because the civilization lacked the ability to build it, but because it lacked the economic need and the cultural will to adopt it on a grand scale. In the ancient world, human labor was cheap and readily available. Slavery was universal, and the economic incentive to mechanize processes like manufacturing or agriculture was virtually non-existent. While the Romans, for instance, employed complex, geared devices for specific military and engineering tasks, such as the odometer for road design, they saw little social or economic benefit in mechanizing the daily labor of the average citizen. The Antikythera mechanism was an academic marvel, a philosophical plaything, perhaps for elite scholars and public display. But the culture did not prioritize the widespread development or commercialization of complex technology. When the great Hellenistic centers began to decline, the knowledge, likely confined to a small circle of elite scientists, was not passed on in a way that ensured its survival. The organizational rigidity of the classical world preferred the efficiency of human hands over the complexity of bronze gears. This pattern of technological regression is seen elsewhere in history. The loss of the complicated Roman cement formulas after the fall of the empire meant complex, concrete structures could not be recreated for centuries. Even the earlier Greek civilization experienced a loss of complexity when the linear B writing system disappeared during the Greek Dark Ages, limiting the transmission of knowledge. The sudden and permanent loss of the world's first analog computer underscores a terrifying truth. progress is not inevitable. A profound technological leap can be made, only to be rejected and forgotten by the culture that created it. It stands as a powerful cautionary tale. The greatest threat to knowledge is not censorship or destruction, but cultural disinterest and the failure to integrate genius into the broader society. Today, the 82 surviving fragments are housed in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. They represent a single, powerful piece of evidence that forces us to re-examine everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. The Greeks had the technology to calculate the future of the stars. They just chose to forget it. And that, more than any gear or dial, is the most mind-bending riddle that remains.